All good.
I'm honored to introduce to you Cheryl Green, who recently had an article published in Authority magazine titled Five Effective Strategies for Mental Well-Being. I smiled when I read your statement. I have taken people pleasing to Olympic levels. For decades, everyone else's needs were more important than your own until, in your words, you hit a brick wall. Can you describe for us what happened?
Yeah, so it was kind of around the time of COVID tapering off, and I had lost my business overnight, as many people did with COVID. I ran a content writing and a book coaching business. So I'm realizing that I had no income very, very quickly. I went to work full time for an animal rescue that I had been volunteering with, serving on the board for. And I worked for them for about a year and a half. And then my clients started coming back. So, one, I had to take them because you don't make enough money in animal rescue to survive and to live. So, I had to take my clients back. I wanted to, of course. And so I was working these like 16-hour days at the animal rescue, and then I would be taking care of my clients after work and doing their content. And at the same time, my parents were getting older, they were getting sicker. I was still serving on boards and volunteering for all these other organizations. And I just broke. I had two,
Nightmare.
it was awful. It was seriously like I've had three really awful times in my life, and that was one of them. Um, but I couldn't handle the workload. I couldn't handle the responsibility, and I couldn't handle the guilt that I was dealing with because I wasn't doing a good job at anything. I was letting everyone down at this point, and I was starting to feel resentful towards people that I cared about and I loved. And it kind of just started out with crying. I was just crying all the time. I couldn't sleep. I'm not a big drinker, but in one week, I drank more than I probably have in most of my life.
Okay.
And, I couldn't get a sentence out without crying or without snapping at somebody. And one day I was just driving down the road and I kind of didn't see an out, but I did see oncoming headlights.
Ooh.
And I figured, if I just cross over this barrier, this median, it could all be over in a second. And thankfully, that scared the crap out of me. I
Yeah.
pulled off to the side, hysterical crying. I didn't want to hurt anybody else. I didn't want to hurt myself. I didn't want to leave my parents or my dogs without anybody to care for them. And I kind of just vowed in that moment something major had to change in my life. And I cleared my plate off of all non-essentials. I took a month off from the rescue and ended up not going back.
Uh-huh.
And I was doing okay. Life was getting better. And then one day I turned around and my plate was full again. And I was like, I don't know how this happened. I just cleaned all this off.
Yes.
And it took, some important conversations. My friend mentioned the word boundaries. And I was like, oh, I mean, I feel like I've heard of those, but I certainly don't have any.
Uh-huh.
And I started researching and realized I couldn't be the only person with this problem. So I outlined my book sitting on an airplane. And then I went home and I did all the research and all the interviews and learned, took the first step on the journey for myself and brought people along with me.
What's the title of your book?
You had me at no.
I love the title. And how did boundary setting then reduce anxiety?
Yeah, so it turns out when you're not trying to be absolutely everything to everyone, you actually get to be you.
Mhm.
And amazing things happened when I stopped. And look, I'm still learning. I made a boundary faux pas this past weekend, so it is definitely a journey. But when you start speaking up, when you start saying no, when you stop people pleasing and stop worrying about just really being what other people want you to be, it is so freeing. And not only did it free up my time and my schedule, but it freed up my emotions.
Hmm.
And like I said, still learning. This is going to be a lifelong journey, I'm sure. But the changes that it's made in my life and the changes that I see it make in my clients' lives, it's priceless.
It is priceless. I also have been on a similar journey for a lifetime, written a book about boundary setting, and I still catch myself. The tendency, the impulse to people please at my own expense is something that I still have to work at.
Yeah.
So I remember you sharing your belief that every request is actually a demand. That's a people pleaser belief, right?
Yes, yeah. During this difficult time, every time someone asked me to do something, even if it was the slightest, like, "Hey, can you grab the mail on your way in?" It just felt like this overwhelming, like, how dare you? Why are you taking advantage of me? Why are you abusing? Like, it got so blown out of proportion.
Yes.
And it took this journey, and it took all of this research and this really self searching, soul searching, whatever you want to call it, to realize that I wasn't being taken advantage of. I was allowing
Yes.
myself to be taken advantage of. And it's something I really try to get across to people, whether I'm coaching or speaking or whatever it is on this boundary journey, we have to take this 100% radical responsibility
Yes.
for where we are and what we're experiencing. And it's not a blame thing. It's a taking your power back
Hmm.
thing. It's saying, I have allowed this up to this point, which means I get to decide when I stop allowing it.
I believe that resentment is the number one characteristic of people pleasing.
Oh yeah.
It's like a signal. If I start feeling resentful, I look at what am I saying yes to that I really want to say no to.
Yes.
So bless you for the journey that you've been on and sharing it also with others through your book and your speaking.
Thank you.
Yes is the only acceptable answer only if you are trying to make other people love you.
Yeah. Yes.
And you mentioned other strategies that reduced anxiety, including breathing and spending time in nature. How do you do both to reduce anxiety when you're aware of that building up?
Yeah, it took years, and again, still on that journey too. But I took a meditation program a while ago, and they really focused on, he called it box breathing. It was in for 4 breaths, hold for 4 breaths, out for 4 breaths, hold. And what I loved about that is it is kind of hard to focus on other things when you are counting, or you're really like focused on your breath. And I still haven't reached that level of meditation where I can clear my mind. Bless you all if you've reached that, but I am still like, I have to be thinking about something, so I'm not thinking about something else. um, but I loved that concept of really focusing on the breath. And one of the other cool tools that I learned, and I don't remember if I put this in the article, but we really identifying what you're feeling and saying it's okay and separating yourself from the feeling. So it's not I am anxious, it's
Yes.
I am feeling anxious. So you're separating yourself, giving a little bit of division there. And that's okay. It's all right. So honestly, I say that to myself at least 5 times a day. If I feel myself going to a bad place, it's okay, in this moment, I am feeling angry, or I am feeling resentful or anxious or whatever it is. And I found that really, it kind of takes you out of the emotion and into the thinking mind, if you will. So that's been a huge help for me. And then, look, I love nature. As you can see from the many plants behind me, I am constantly working to bring it into my indoor environment as well. But I think there's so many tools like the breathing, like nature, that we know.
Mm.
But when it comes to being in that moment, we don't think to access them. So I try to spend, at least a little bit of time. I'm very lucky to have a beautiful backyard. So, even just to sit in my backyard and be able to look at the plants and whatever happens to be flying or buzzing around. Um, but I think, if you don't have access to that, go to a park. If you don't have a park, open the windows and have some plants in your house.
Yeah.
Just connect to that natural world, which we're so disconnected from in our daily lives. So,
I enjoy walking, and to get outdoors and to walk and enjoy nature is very restorative for me. And I really feel it when I miss that for very long.
yeah.
You say the subtitle to your book is How Setting Healthy Boundaries Helps Banish Burnout, Repair Relationships, and Save Your Sanity. That's quite a list there. And where can viewers find this book?
So it is on Amazon. You can search by the title. You can also go to my website, which is CherylGreenSpeaks.com, and that's Cheryl with an S. You can find a direct link there, so you don't have to search. And I also did a coloring book to go with it. So while everybody else was writing journals to go with their book, I was like, you know what? Like, people like to color. It's really calming. It's really soothing. So grab the coloring book as well. And you can also go on my website and download a free How to Say No cheat sheet. So,
How to Say No cheat sheets?
yes, yeah. Because honestly, setting boundaries in your mind is one thing. Actually communicating those boundaries to another human being, entirely different beast.
Yes.
So sometimes where we fall apart is the I don't actually know how to say this to someone. So I just
Mhm.
created some sentence starters that people can use to feel more comfortable going into those conversations.
That's a great idea. And then you have a newsletter, I assume, can be
I do.
gotten from your website, CherylGreenSpeaks.com, Cheryl with an S.
Yes.
It's the newsletter's called Boundary Bites. You can also hire Cheryl Green as a speaker or to facilitate workshops. So again, go to CherylGreenSpeaks.com. Cheryl, thank you for the journey that you're sharing with others to help give courage for setting appropriate boundaries. One of the things I've learned over time is that when I set a boundary that's healthy for me, it's automatically healthy for the other person involved. So that helps give me courage to set a boundary when it's necessary.
Yes.
Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. I wish you the best, and thank you for the work you're sharing with others.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Cheryl.